We are multidimensional beings. We live in a simulated reality that is completely created through each person's individual belief system. Our individual belief system aligns with other people's belief systems, creating a collective reality, creating a collective projection that creates which dimension that you are in. What are dimensions? Dimensions are simply states of consciousness, states of awareness. So to be multidimensional means that we have the ability to travel through different states of consciousness, different states of awareness, to travel through different timelines that are all operating parallel to this one current that we're in. But we're not always just in this one. That's the thing, that's the illusion to think that we're always in the same reality, which is false because we're multidimensional. We move and sway and ebb into different realities based on what is being projected at us, based on what you're watching, what you're listening to, who you're around, what your belief system is. So I'm going to give you an example of how the elite understand this system and how they project into the mainstream media this information to get you to go into lower states of awareness, aka lower dimensions where they have more control over your mind. I'm going to use this situation that occurred. What happens is whenever they drop names like that, it unlocks cell memory of people who lived in times whenever all of this racism began. When things like this happen in the media that are false, that happen, it triggers inside people their cell memory of the trauma that occurred when they were living in those lives, in those timelines that are still operating parallel to us. So as soon as someone who experienced this form of racism, they drop into that timeline if they are still being triggered by this information, if they still believe that what you're seeing on mainstream media is actually real. But remember, everything on mainstream media is a show. It is all a projection. They're all characters created to influence us to believe in something that benefits their narrative. Because if you remember correctly, what they also do is they bring up old situations like Rosa Parks, like Martin Luther King Jr. What they do, the elite system, they create these moments to trigger these situations so that there is a collective drop in our energy. The same thing whenever they do that there are natural disasters happening. The mainstream collective, the mainstream program creates these natural disasters. They're not natural at all. That's why it's called a weather system. But people who lived in things like Hurricane Katrina, they are triggered when they see anything else happening. They immediately drop into this fear because they have trauma around these things, because we are not taught in this life how to manage our trauma. What this message is: 1, obviously, turn off media. 2, decide which dimension you're going to be living. This is how we are multidimensional people, because we have the choice to decide which dimension to live in, which is how we ascend out of this human game. This is where